Good evening, everyone. I'm food writer and cookbook author Tara OBrady. When I began to consistently write online in 2005, it was a food blog in the nascent days of the genre. I could not have predicted digital media would change my life. And I'd like to talk about how much the job of being a creator has changed as well. The promise of Web 1.0 was the democratization of information. Egalitarian, largely divorced from the constraints of age, gender, or geography. The utopian belief emerged that one could be anyone online, and I thought the same for me. I had a writing background, so I would be a writer online until I could be a writer in my real life. To go with my words, I took photos with a tiny camera and a lamp I dragged from one side of the kitchen to the other. I wrote without thought to an audience. It was simply a message sent out into the ether with the hope that somehow it would echo back, rebounding off some like minded individual. It was a hobby. Then it all exploded. Digital media became media, full stop. Stat counters lit up. People began to take things very seriously. We were given tools to measure our popularity and were told to prioritize SEO. Advertisement proliferated on the margins. There was competition, awards, visual-based aggregate sites like Food Gawker arrived, and the words became less important. My inexpensive point and shoot no longer would cut it. DSLRs and knowledge of the full Adobe suite was the standard, or at least the time and resources to acquire both. Output needed to match demand. Folks started making serious cash. Traditional outlets came calling, and many of us were offered columns, then books. Food blogs were leveraged into product lines, restaurants, and television programs. And then that all gave way to social media. Twitter is microblogging, Instagram a streamlined Flickr. There was an intentional sense of shared ownership in the ways these platforms presented themselves, even while the very communities we'd fostered were split into fragments cast across a boundless space. Blogs were now largely businesses, media companies on their own, peppered with affiliate links. Social media was something altogether different. Declared to immeasurably support other financial endeavors by elevating one's brand, only directly benefiting the few influencers who leveraged their effect upon others to broker deals that took place in DMs and in rooms the average user never entered. With Web 3.0, the rise of the creator is an attempt to monetize participation in an accountable transaction, controlled wholly by those within the act, upfront in the open. As Sam mentioned, through places like Patreon, Kickstarter, Cameo, Buy Me a Coffee, Substack, and myriad others. Instead of a nebulous concept of value, there are prices, tiers, and tipping models. It is an attempt to tighten the net around our various audiences, to cluster them through a link tree perhaps, even as that is simply a crossroads to those same distance corners as before. And unfortunately, for many creators, the reality falls short of the promise. Despite Bloomberg valuing the creator economy at $20 billion, that wealth is only reaped by the very few. The Twitch info leak revealed the staggering reality that only 1% of its streamers make 50% of the service's revenue. 50% make less than $28 per annum and do not even see a penny, as there is a minimum $100 payout. Similarly, a meager 5 to 10% of Substack users are reported to be paid subscribers. Before the term was coined in 2011, as claimed by Timothy Shea, consciously or not, anyone who interacted with the internet was a creator. If you commented on a forum, posted a video on YouTube, sent friends a snap, streamed an event, you have added value to a platform simply through your interaction with us. And someone profited. And those capital C creators, those who have to pay taxes, cover equipment costs, cobble together retirement plans, insurance, employ others, they function in a rebranded gig economy without any of the infrastructure of the previous models. I'm considered accomplished. I've written a book. I'm a freelance food writer for numerous pub outlets, a travel and event host, and an on-air personality. And even though I do not run ads and only very rarely engage in sponsored content on social media or in any digital space, those channels are the consequent source of most of my income. They are my calling card, and thus my bottom line is tied to their changeability and conditions of success. There is that expectation of always hustling, always innovating, that in my agreement of terms of use was the tacit understanding of the lack of control of my own livelihood. And as Richard mentioned, the unrelenting requirement to keep pace with opaque algorithms. The economy in which we supposedly are equal participants remains largely unknowable to those of us who rely on it and to those of us who are its consumers. If we cannot define it, then it is impossible to own it, let alone to know the true gamble of being one of the few being paid. Thank you so much.